Good night, everyone. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you guys back here on another Thursday night live edition of the Digital Age. I want to thank all of you for coming to tonight's episode because, again, you could be anywhere in the world right now, but you have decided to lock in and join us for the next hour as we have yet another jam-packed info session with another one of the top minds in Trinidad and Tobago. So, before we dive into anything, you guys know the drill if you guys have been tuning in week after week. And if you are new to the Digital Age Show, this live show, listen, this isn't here, you're not here to just have fun and take notes and drink your drink. We have fun. You guys got to give me energy. So, if you guys are in this live tonight, drop some hearts, drop some fireworks. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. If you are here from Trinidad and Tobago, let me know. If you're here from Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Jamaica, the US, the UK, Canada, wherever you are tuning in from, let us know in the comments below. Because again, we need tons of energy. That's a lot. Like, you guys got to help me. It's hard up here, when you're sitting around to yourself. You almost feel like you're talking to yourself sometimes. So the only way I get that energy is by you guys letting me know in the comments. Give me some hearts, some fireworks. Let me know that you guys are in here. So tonight, the guest we have tonight, listen, he is somebody that I love talking to. Because when he's not on camera, listen, the most energy, the most amount of life. And it's always an amazing time just hearing his thoughts, his viewpoints on a wide variety of topics. Listen, we're going to be bringing him shortly. But before we bring in tonight's guest, let's take a look in the chat. We're seeing people coming in. So we have Christine, good night from LinkedIn. I see you. Hi, Christine. Miss Warward, good night. She's tuning in from Facebook. Good night. Lizelle, hello. Facebook again. And Miss Sampson, I don't want to butcher the first name, but hey, you're tuning in from LinkedIn. Glad that you could join us tonight. And Janelle, how are you doing? I'm happy that you got to tune in live. I know you've been trying to come in live and you've missed it, but I'm glad you're here tonight. Who else we got? We got Anthony. We got Judy McCutcheon out of Grenada. Good night. We have Minneapolis, Minnesota is in the building. I'm not seeing your name, but glad you're here tonight. We got Raj from Caranage. Good night. Tusum Dental from DC. We got more TT in the house. Listen, I love it. Ishmael, Dr. Venice, Devon Scott, my brother from episode 1. If you guys missed the episode with Devon, you guys gonna go check that out. A lot of knowledge on YouTube. All right, so we have a lot of people that are coming in. So I really want to get to the content for tonight. We have a lot of States people in here tonight too. This is going to be beautiful. All right. So without further ado, we are going to be bringing in the guest for tonight. So he is one of the main sponsors. Listen, when I came up with the concept and I went to him, it was a no-brainer. He said yes. Just send my secretary the details and let's get this started. Digital Age could not have happened without this man right here. This is the Group CEO of Eastern Credit Union, Mr. Chris Lewis. How you doing, Chris?
I'm fine. Thank you, Keron, for inviting me to your show.
Well, of course. We can't have the show without you.
You could.
Listen, nah, because even still, even if you were not a sponsor, you were still going to be on this because there's so much knowledge about this business space that we could extract from you, that the conversation with you still had to happen.
Okay.
So you,
Thank
you
you.
weren't getting away. You weren't getting
Okay.
away. So I know this is way past your bedtime. I'm glad you stayed awake for
Correct.
us to drop some jewels for us.
I had to do some push-ups.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, Chris, so before we get started, what we like to do is now that we have you on camera, we have
Yeah.
people in the live with us. We don't start officially until we drop the digital age intro. All right, Chris, you sit
Okay.
tight.
Sure. Thank you.
So, Chris, all right. So we're gonna get started because, like I said, I know you are a busy man. I know I dragged you out of your bed, so I don't want to keep you. I don't want to keep you extra long.
I appreciate
So wonderful. So, Chris, for the new people that are tuning in for the very first time, what we like to do is we like to give everybody kind of a quick breakdown of what to expect from tonight's episode. So,
Yes.
we are going to be talking to you about entrepreneurship and getting started. You've had years of experience with Investt TT and now with your role at Eastern Credit Union. You guys are very big on entrepreneurship and business. So I know there's a lot of information that you have about getting started in the business world today that you can give us some knowledge on.
Sure.
The next topic that we're going to be diving into is going to be about getting investments, financing, support from the institutions, and some of the initiatives that you are pioneering yourself with Eastern Credit Union to support the business community in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
And then lastly, we will take questions from the live audience. So for those of you in the live audience, try to save the questions till the end because what will happen is I try to save those for that last minute segment. All right. So
Okay.
let us get started. I'm going to throw the timer up on so people know exactly what is going on. And Chris, you and I are going to get started. And the clock has started. So Chris,
Tell
talk
me.
to us, man. Hey, so how long have you been at Eastern now?
July 29th was my anniversary. 1 year.
So how's it been? How's it changed from Investt TT to Eastern? How's that change been for you?
Well, my career has been diverse, as you know, state sector, private sector. This is my first time in a credit union, but it has been fun because there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
So I get bored very easily, but you can't get bored at Eastern Credit Union
Right.
because there's a lot of transformation that has to take place and is taking place. So it's
Right.
been fun, and it's a
Right.
good team I have working with me.
Listen, you in the short time that you have been there, I've seen firsthand a lot of the initiatives that you have tried starting, and it's so funny because it's like when it's not happening, you're wishing where are the institutions to get the ball rolling on some of
Yeah.
these initiatives that we see that you putting out, and now that it's happened, COVID comes.
Correct. Well, that was the positive side of COVID.
Ooh, so talk to us a little bit about that. How has COVID really affected Eastern Credit Union and some of the things that you guys are doing?
Well, of course, operationally, we had to make some changes in terms of opening hours, sanitation schedules, face mask requirements, and so on. But on the positive side, it has pushed through our agenda of digitization to keep the members away from the branches and on their laptops, on their smartphones, on their tablets, doing business with Eastern Credit Union. So
Right.
it has pushed. We had a 3-year strategic plan, which we had approved in January of this year. So COVID compressed that 3-year plan into 1 year in terms
Wow.
of the digitization process because it became an imperative because of
Right.
the circumstances.
Right. Listen, that is the fact that you have been able to pivot very quickly. Me
Yeah.
and you have spoken, and I'm truly amazed because some of the other institutions, it feels like they've been dragging their feet. How
Yes.
what is the difference with you? How have you been able to really just stay on the ball and really push Eastern in the right direction to change with the punches at such a fast
Well,
turnaround time?
well, part of it is my whole approach to life and to business. It was about research. So Eastern Credit Union was the first job I took where I actually researched the company for 3 months.
Right,
Before I started working, I analyzed the financial statements. I got information about the demographics. And basically on day one of my taking up the appointment, I was able to tell them, hey, things have to change. We
right,
need to get more digital because there's a millennial generation coming up. There's the Gen Z coming up, and they are on their cell phones. So if you're not on your cell phones, you don't exist. So I started to give that message from day one.
right,
In terms of that, we have to cater for that generation. We
right,
had to cater for the entrepreneurial class because the traditional consumer lending, while it may still be going on and still be a significant percentage of the total business, it's changing again because of the millennial generation. They're in their
right,
parents' homes for a little longer than normal. Usual, they're living at age 35 on an average. So they don't need the appliances and the consumer type items that would be the main self-credit credit union movement in the past.
right,
So, and then with the change in economy, with government finances may not be as strong as it may have been 10 years ago, you need to rely more on your independence funding in order
right,
to survive. You can't rely on a state sector job. Is no guarantee. You see what has happened in the recent past with some of the larger enterprises. So people now have to use their own resources. So the combination of the technology improvements with the digitization and the changes in the economy with the collapse in the world economy in 2008 and so to 10, that sort of created a perfect storm, and then COVID hit. So it was a natural pivot for us because we were already pushing in that direction.
right,
So even before COVID came to Trinidad, we did our research. So once it was in a direct line of flight from Trinidad, say New York to Trinidad or London or Dominican Republic, I said, well, it's a matter of days or weeks before it comes to
before it
Trinidad.
comes here.
So our management team and members of the board, we started to plan for that event. So when COVID came, it was a natural transition to the new reality. So is in a sense, it was preparation out of research and looking
Right.
at trends in what's happening in the society, in the economic environment, in the demographics of the society, and recognizing you must change.
And look at that. And COVID really just came and sped that plan up.
Correct. Correct.
So now, one of the things that you talked about is the fact that the millennial generation and younger is no longer really taking loans for
Yes.
appliances or houses because
Yes.
we're staying in our parents' house longer.
Yeah.
People, let's say, buying a lot of the appliances because again we don't need it.
Yes.
But you decided to make the jump into doing more business loans. So
Yes.
is it that like what are you seeing that you could have foreseen that entrepreneurship is going to be play an even bigger role because you were doing this even before COVID. You were doing this since last year where you were doing that
Yes.
analysis. So what were you
Yeah.
seeing that you needed to pivot to offer more or cater more towards business loans and the business community?
Well, as I said, it started with the national economy. So you could be less reliant on the sort of the mainstays, the government job kind of thing, the large private sector companies, to be you join it and then you're there for life. There's no such thing as a permanent job anymore. You
Right.
just everywhere you are, you're there for the time being.
Right.
So and then the younger generation coming up, they're growing up in a technology age, a digital age, as you call it. So they are more attuned to entrepreneurship as a viable career option, which may not have been the case in my time. So when
Right.
I went to St. Mary's back in whenever the day, it didn't think of entrepreneurship. You think of getting a good job and moving on in your career and so on. But the younger generation, they're thinking of, okay, what kind of app could I develop? How can I
Right.
make money for myself? What kind of business can I go into? That's a conversation that is taking place in the society that didn't used to happen as frequently 10 years ago. So it
Right.
was watching these societal trends that led me to think, well, hey, we have to be prepared. We can't let it pass by. It's not a fad. It's the way of the world. It's what's happening. So what is the good thing with the technology again is developing a meritocracy in Trinidad. So it's not about who you are and what you know and what's your surname. It's about what can you do, what value can you add to me, to my business, how can you make my life better and simpler. And that is where the new ideas generation is coming from in terms of the entrepreneurship. So we've seen a lot of fabulous ideas, big and small, coming up in the world today and in Trinidad in particular that didn't exist 5 years ago. But you see, once you have a value proposition that you can make money off of it, people will buy into it regardless of who you are.
Right. So, would you say, is it easier to start a business now in 2020 than it was, say, 10, 20 years ago?
Well, you have more access to information. I think that's the big advantage. You have the internet. You can do some reading. You can go on YouTube, as you said in our to that Eastern programs. You can learn on your own at or a very minimal cost what's happening, what's trending, what is popular, what are the society changes that you should take note of. Where's the demand? So you
Right.
have that information that you didn't have 10 years ago. So I think that that's a big plus in terms of going into business now. And it's not just about in terms of the business idea, but into the basic fundamental training, like doing a business plan. And so
Right.
in 10, 20 years ago, you just had UE, and then you had UTT near Custard. Now you have a
Right.
plethora of institutions that you could learn things from. So I would say yes, it's easier. And then the cost of entering a business, depending on the type of business, that has dropped. So the barriers to entry are not as high as they used to be unless you're getting into something very technical that will have a large equipment requirement to start up. But if it's a idea-based type of business, you could do that on the cheap, $5,000 and you could get going.
Listen, I'm glad that you said that because when people ask me about my journey and how I got started,
Yes.
when I started off as a blog, and
Mm.
that was garnering me attention. I was able to do series and gain partnerships, and I was making money off of that.
Yes.
But it allowed me to validate my idea that what I was trying to do with
Yes.
Droid Island, it was something I could really make money from. I
Yes.
decided to go the route of opening up a brick and mortar store. Now,
Yes.
the cost, the cost
Correct.
of opening that brick and mortar store was
Yes.
astronomical. But I
Yes.
paid it because I felt like at the time that was just a natural progression
Yes.
until I started to monetize my content and the partnerships that I was gaining with telecommunications companies and smartphone manufacturers. That was
Yes.
a whole lot more profitable monetizing my IP, and
Yes.
then shifting to an online business model where to turn my blog into a fully established e-commerce platform cost me 500 TT.
Yes. Peanuts.
Absolute peanuts, you know. So one thing that you and I had talked about was, the idea of validating your idea before
Yes.
you go to market. So in your infinite wisdom, what are some tips? What are some things that we could look at for the entrepreneurs that are starting out to how can they validate their ideas before just saying, you know what, I want to build I want to go into retail and I need $100,000. Like, what are some things that we
Yes.
could be looking at to get started?
Well, I'm glad you raised that because often the last thing you need is financing. I mean, I'm representing a financial institution,
Yeah.
but really that comes at the end. The first thing you need is a good idea, something that makes sense, something that would add value to people's lives, something that would create a positive difference. Then
Right.
is it marketable? As you said, can you monetize it? And the critical thing is it scalable? So
Right.
you may be making some very good tamron balls, but is that a business venture you should go into? Because if somebody comes and wants 1,000 tamron balls, can you deliver it within a couple of days or something, or would you be able to have to turn on the order because you just can't scale up to delivering 1,000 Tamron balls. So
Right.
it has to meet those kinds of criteria. So I think first you have to, because there are a lot of people and there are a lot of instances I see in the Trinidad society, I won't call the names, where they have all the money, but it was just a lousy business idea. And I might watch it and I'm like, hell no, why did they go into that in the first place? It
Right.
just didn't make sense. So spend your time developing your business idea, developing your business plan, looking at your cash flows and what you call stress test the cash flows. Because one of the things about business, the costs tend to stay constant or increase, revenues tend to go up and down.
I need you to
So
say that again. I need you to say that again.
yes, well, costs tend to stay constant or increase, and revenues tend to go up and down. So when you do a fantastic cash flow and oh, I'm making my $1 million in the first 2 years and things are looking good, and I said, Chris Lewis comes along and said, okay, let me take a 10% cut in those revenues and a
Right.
5% increase in those expenses, and what do we have? And it might be a different picture. And so you need to do that to do those numbers and to be sure about those numbers because really it's not just financing you're coming for, it's an investment that you are making of yourself, of your time and your own resources, and you don't want to lose that investment you are personally making. So
Correct.
so that's important. The next thing is you have to know what you're doing. You may be technically sound, but do you know how to run a business?
Ah. Continue. Continue. I don't want to cut you off. Continue. Continue. I love where you're going with that.
Yes, because some people they're very good at what they're doing. They're very good at making bicycles, but do they
Right.
know how to market the bicycles? Do they know how to target which group they should target? What sort of design styles are appropriate for bicycles today? So maybe in their head they have a bicycle from 10 years ago, but the young people, young generation coming up don't want that style bike. They want something with a fresher look. So the marketing elements, the costing elements, they may be making a bike that's very good and sells very quickly, but you know what? They're losing on every bike that they sell because they costed it incorrectly. Or they costed it too highly because they're not using a marginal costing approach in the sense that if you invested in certain equipment, that's sunk cost. So you can't try to recover that equipment cost on every bike that you make. You
Right.
have to say, well, okay, what portion of that cost am I going to allocate to each of my bicycles to get a fair price looking at what the market is offering? So
Right.
those kind of elements, if you don't understand all those concepts and principles, you need to get the help that you would need to have a sustainable business.
And
Uh,
I'm. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and there are a lot of institutions available in Trinidad and online that could help you get there, but you need to have that grounded. So you can't just sit back and say, "Oh, I'm the best bike maker in the country," and that's not enough.
Right.
You need you have to be the best businessman too.
Listen, and I'm glad you said that because it stems into what I wanna go into
Yeah,
is we whenever I hear a tertiary education or a tertiary institution offering an entrepreneurship course, right?
yeah,
And then I say, okay, we're teaching it in school. And then you try to do your due diligence and figure out, well, who is teaching this
yeah,
entrepreneurship class? And then you find the name, and that
yeah.
person has never run a business.
Hmm.
And then it kind of it throws a lot of people off from taking an entrepreneurship class.
Yeah.
So when it comes to learning business, where should we go to learn how to conduct business? Because it's one of those things where nobody really teaches you out the gate. You might have the idea, you might be able to fund the idea, or maybe there's not a lot of cost to start that business. But where can
Yes.
we go to really learn some of the fundamentals of business so that we can build a business that is sustainable?
That's a tough question. I'll give you share some of my experience.
Please,
when I was
yes.
when I was in business school, and it was one of the better schools in the United States, and a lot of technical knowledge and so on. But they said the number one skill in management, not so much entrepreneurship, but management, is people skills. Have to know how to communicate to people, how to get people to perform at a level that you want them to in order to help you.
Right.
If you don't have those people skills, it doesn't work. So the translating that somewhat in terms of entrepreneurship, I don't think it's something you can learn by itself. Well, okay, I study this course and I'm suddenly an entrepreneur and I go off and be successful. No, I can learn certain management skills in terms of a balance sheet and cash flows and marketing techniques and so on. You can learn those things and you could
Right.
apply them. But in the end, the hard part, which you learn by yourself basically, is how do you put everything together? And there's no magic formula. And I think that's the first lesson to learn. There's no magic formula. Because John was successful doing X doesn't mean that I, Peter, will be successful doing the same thing. Because the
Right.
circumstances of John may have been appropriate for John at that time, but it may not be appropriate for Peter or for Mary in another context, in another type of business. So it's a question of asking the right questions. As I told my team when I joined Eastern, I don't have the answer for everything. I didn't come to Eastern with any grand plan, but
Right.
I know what questions to ask.
Right.
And you have to be inquisitive. You have to ask questions. You have to do your analysis. Look to see what the data is telling you. To get what the trends are, and then try to draw the right conclusions. Don't pretend or don't think that you know it all from get-go, because life is not like that.
Yes, yes, yes. And I agree. I agree that maybe like you I don't think people can learn to be an entrepreneur. I think you just need to jump off the cliff with your idea and try to make it work. But
Yes.
what you pointed out was, learning the skills needed
Yes.
that will allow you to sustain yourself, and
Correct.
that goes a long way. And I think, now more than ever we are in a skills based economy where
Correct.
if you have a skill,
Yes.
if you have a skill that is a high income skill, regardless of whether you get laid off, you are now able to participate in the
Yes.
global economy. So if you know
Correct.
how to balance a sheet, you could balance books for people across the globe utilizing technology.
Same
If you
principles.
it's same principles, right? So
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you brought that up. One thing I wanted to touch on, and I want to kind of strike a nerve. I want to kind of poke a bear because I know how you feel about this, right?
Okay.
When you hear, these young whippersnappers running around talking about, they have their full-time job and I have my side hustle. How
Yes.
does that make you feel when you hear people talking about their baby as a side hustle?
You really want me to answer that?
Yes, yes, we are here. I need that. I know how you feel. I need you to tell us how you feel.
In 3 words, shut up already. Because words are powerful things. And when you refer to something as a side hustle, you have put it in a category that I don't need it. I have my day job. Those are all the words are implying. So if it does not make, it doesn't matter to me because it's my side hustle. You have to look at it as part of your dreams that you are trying to fulfill. It may not be 100% of your dream. It may be 10%, it may be 5%, but it's part of your dream, so it has value. So your job is to nurture that value to make it realize its true its potential. But if
Right.
you disregard it or you use pejorative terms like a side hustle, well then you will treat it like that, and chances are it may not succeed because you know what, you didn't give it the attention it deserves.
Correct. And I know there are many people that are tuning in that feel like that as well.
Yes.
There is a whole mindset shift when you say, "Hey, you know what? I'm this, selling soap, selling hand soaps is my side hustle." It just means you're just looking for cash. But the
Yes.
minute you say, "This is my business," I might be part
Yes.
time in the business, but
Yes.
the goal is eventually to go full time with it. You treat it, you operate, you speak about it drastically differently.
Correct, because you're
Drastic.
trying to grow a baby. It is about somewhat like compartmentalizing your life.
Right.
So one part of my life is the soap business.
Right.
And it's part of my life. If I take it away, I lose part of my life, and nobody wants to throw away part of their life. So they need to look at it like that. And it may be at an infant stage, but you're trying to make this baby grow. So it has
Right.
to be nurtured, it has to be fed. And if you treat it in that way, then chances are you will be more successful than if it's something, well, if it works, it works. So, and the idea about a business too is, we learned that in accounting, it's a going concern. So I think earlier discussion, we said that I wouldn't go into a business, for example, to
Right.
make face masks,
Right.
because that will only last as long as COVID.
Right.
I may make money doing it, but that's different from going into business, because as soon as the virus goes out of the environment, nobody wants to wear a face mask anymore.
Correct.
They restricted for a year. Why would I want to put that on? But no, it's not fashionable for me. I can't breathe sometimes in it properly. So that's just that's a side hustle. You just want to make some money, and you might make good money, but it's not a going concern definition of a business. So I try to rely on the accounting concept. It has to be a going concern, something for continuity, something that you could hand down, or something you could sell in the future
I love
to
it.
someone because the value has appreciated.
I love it. Do you feel like the environment here in the Caribbean, do you feel like we are producing more side hustlers than business owners in today's Caribbean region?
I think people start off as in the side hustle mode simply because of the realities. They may have their full-time jobs, they're just looking, they have ideas. There's no support system for them to really grow and develop and make that leap of faith to say, well, yes, this is what I want to do. We're trying to do something along those lines at Eastern Credit Union. We're not fully on board yet,
We're
but
going to
it's a
talk about
question
it
of,
just now, so don't worry.
yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
It's about linking, because we can't do everything as a
Right.
financial institution, but you could link with people like the entrepreneurship unit of UE or Export TT, who some people have been speaking to, or YTEP, to create that ecosystem so people have that level of confidence that, hey, I may not know everything, but I have an idea, it's a good idea. Can work with this network of people who could help me test it and make it grow. And
Right.
that's what we really need so people can make that transition into entrepreneurs in a serious and more full-time way.
Perfect. Chris, I love that. And we're going to be talking a bit more about some of the initiatives that you have started with Eastern Credit Union. But
Yeah.
first, we are going to take a quick break to thank
Sure.
the sponsors of the digital age.
Yep.
So we're going to do that. Chris, hold tight. The audience, listen, guys, if you guys are tuning in, let me know in the comments. Give me some hearts, some fire if you love the gems that Chris is already dropping. And we have a lot more to go. All right. So let us know in the comments. Fireworks, hearts, let me know. Let's see that. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive more into some of the initiatives of Eastern Credit Union. We're going to talk about getting investments for your business, some of the support that's around in the community, and also financing for your business. All right. So stick around. We'll be back in a moment.
Stay connected and entertained with broadband bundles designed for you. With Flow starter and advanced plans, you can enjoy faster speeds to stream more of what you love. Get free access to the best shows, series, and movies with HBO Go. And connectivity on the go with free Flow Wi-Fi. Packages start from as low as $295 and no contract required. Visit discoverflow.co to sign up today. Flow, keeping you connected.
Sharing your goals, helping you find your place in the world. Eastern Gratitude, holding your hand, leading the way, here for your needs, making sure that you succeed. Eastern's lending a hand, Eastern together, we're leading the way. Eastern Credit Union, Credit Union, leading the way.
Jamal just sent me a text.
Chris, So we're back live, and I hope that the Eastern team is locked in and loaded and checking it out. I hope we're doing good. Again, let us know in the comments if you guys are enjoying the program so far. Hearts, fireworks, you guys drop that. Let us know that we are doing good. So the next part of the show is going to be diving into, like I said, investments for the business, or how to get investments, financing for your business ideas, and also the support and the initiatives that Eastern Credit Union is really doing for the community to help foster a more of an entrepreneurship community and business community. All right. So we're going to have that clock started. And Chris, let's get right back into it. So just to kind of piggyback off of where we left off, right? Talk to us about you are providing with Eastern. You're doing some new support initiatives, and it goes beyond. So we know that we have the financing, the new financing tools that you guys are releasing for business owners. But I also want you to touch on that, but then also talk about the partnerships that you and Eastern have acquired, so that you can create this entire ecosystem. Let's dive into that.
Okay, first, maybe if you allow me, I'll
Go ahead.
start off with our whole approach to the entrepreneurship space,
Yes.
because this is something that was been relatively new for Eastern Credit Union. So my first approach was actually through LinkedIn. I reached out to one of the people they follow me on LinkedIn, the member of an entrepreneurship club.
Right.
So I met with the members of that club. In those days, you could have sit down in a restaurant. So we met in a restaurant and we chatted about what sort of challenges entrepreneurship.
CEOs do that?
Well, Chris Lewis does.
Go ahead.
What kind of challenges did entrepreneurs face? So they mentioned the range of products, in other words, they would like to see. Simple little things that I sit down in my office in Eastern may not have thought of.
Right.
So one of the things is like project financing. So they have an order, they may be a caterer. Let's use a simple example. They have to cater for 1,000 people, 500 people, not at this time, but outside COVID. And they need $20,000 to get started to buy the raw materials and this sort of thing. They may not have that.
Right.
So they basically want financing that is fairly short term, 3 months to 9 months, to fulfill a project that they may have. And security would be a contract that they have. And would we take the contract as collateral for such financing?
Right.
So that is one of the products we have come up with. And that came out from the discussion with the entrepreneurs club that I met with in the restaurant.
Right.
So a lot of the ideas came that way. For example, financing of equipment. If you're going into manufacturing small scale, let's say you're doing food processing type of business, there are, for example, grants programs run through Export TT. Of course, I used to work there as well.
Yes. Oh, yes.
As the CEO there. So they give financing, let's say, for up to 50% of the cost of the equipment. So let's say the equipment is worth $500,000, 500,000. They would lend you 250,000.
Right.
Eastern Credit Union will finance 80% of the balance that you need. So that's about 230,000. So you basically put up your 20,000 because we're looking to see some equity in the game.
Right.
And we would hold the equipment, which is worth 500,000, as collateral.
Right.
So, so we secure our position, you get your equipment and your grant, and basically everybody walks away. One of the key things that came out of these discussions as well is that sometimes they need help. They don't just need money, they need advice. So this is where, again, I reached out through my links to entrepreneurship unit of University of the West Indies, Department of Management Studies there.
Right.
And we have a partnership with them. So if we come across, or if we interact with entrepreneurs who need that sort of basic management training, they would be referred to the entrepreneurship unit and undergo the required training.
Right.
Beyond that, the entrepreneurship unit at Management Studies would supply a mentor who it's a small cost attached to it.
Right.
Who would come into your business once a month? Because again, sometimes that's what you need. You need somebody to tell you, hey, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Or why is your sales down? Ask hard questions that you have to answer. It's still your business, but you still have to answer to somebody who, so in other words, you have to get your facts straight.
Right. Correct.
So that's part of the program that we have. So we have that link with entrepreneurship unit. We have the link with Export TT, who has a whole range of capacity building programs for exporters.
Right.
We now developing. We have initial conversations with YTEP in terms of that market and their
That's
entrepreneurship
huge.
programs for the youth. So, and again, they too will have some financing needs after that. So our approach is about building an ecosystem. So you're not just coming to Eastern Credit Union
Just for
for
the
a loan.
money. Right.
Yeah. Because you could go other places and get that. But we want to make sure you succeed because entrepreneurship has, as you would know, has a fairly high failure rate. So we want to reduce the risk of failure, and that is through education, that is through training. So we are invested in that as well, that we don't just want to lend you money and sign here. We want to make sure that in the end you have that money, you can make best use of it. So that is the kind of approach. We're developing a business center which should open by the end of this month, which is catering strictly for entrepreneur loans and small business loans to people are already in existence.
Yeah.
And well, you know what? I can't talk too much with yet because we ain't ready yet. But you
Right.
know about
Right. Yeah.
so we'll be doing some hubs again to create a kind of further ecosystem for people who have new ideas, a place where they could come in and share their ideas and get training and mentorship and so on and help develop their ideas so it could become viable businesses. So it's about developing that entire ecosystem. And that is where Eastern comes in.
Listen.
And that is what we're trying to create because we realized very early that it's not simply about getting money. That's the easy part.
Correct. People have money. There's a
Yeah.
lot of places you can go to for money. Whether you
Correct.
get the money, because, well, we're going to dive into that just now, but whether you get the money is a different story. But you could always go to
Yeah.
places to get money.
Yes.
Um, so I love the fact that you guys have taken it upon yourselves to create the ecosystem, and
Yeah.
you're looking at it from a holistic perspective. So you don't just want to give the money, but you want to ensure that people get the correct training so that they can
Yeah.
actually put the money to use, to good use, and we can
Correct.
get more businesses, because more businesses means more employment, right?
Correct.
So one of the things that when I moved to Trinidad, I mean, it's been something that you just keep on hearing. You keep on hearing. And when you listen to political ads, you keep on hearing this. You
Yeah.
keep hearing about the government is going to be, creating jobs. The government's going to be doing X amount of jobs. Do you feel like it is the government's job to create employment?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
The government's job, in my mind, is to grow the economy, to facilitate the economy,
Right.
to make it easy for people to do business in the economy.
Right.
In some cases, government has to step in because there may be some area or aspect of the economy needs development, and the private sector may be lagging in pushing that development. And in the national interest, the government will feel the need to step in to say, well, hey, we need to go in this direction because this is important for country Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
But that aside, really, it is not really, I don't think it's philosophically, it's not my idea that that's the government's role long term to be creating jobs. Each of us have it within ourselves to create our own job, basically. And even entrepreneurs, we talk about entrepreneurship, but nobody wants to just work by themselves for the rest of their life. They want to hire people too. So it's about developing businesses and creating a economic environment. So when you travel from Arima to Port of Spain, it's not taking you 3 hours. So the government will build the highways, they will build the priority bus route, they will do what is necessary, they'll deal with crime and this sort of thing. And then occasionally, as I said, they have to step in because they say, hey, this is an area that needs development, and
Right.
private sector, you'll take it too long to build this smelter or whatever, or the cost may be too high. So we as a government have to step in and do that. But it's all with the intent of growing the economy. That's I think is the real goal, to grow the economy and to cater for the mass citizenry over time.
Perfect. I love how you broke that down. And again, it's a mindset. It's a mindset thing that I think many of us in the Caribbean need to get over, because you constantly keep hearing about there are no jobs, or people have gone to school and they have gone
Yes.
into a field where, quite frankly, if you did your homework, you would know that that specific field is crowded. It is
Yes.
it, unless you have an opportunity guaranteed somewhere in the world, it doesn't make sense for you to jump into that field, So
Yes.
it is definitely a mindset thing that we need more people talking about and educating people on.
Yes.
To switch gears a little bit, I want to tap into your knowledge about investments or getting investment funding for your startup business.
Yes.
Let's talk about, what are some of the things, because we hear it all the time. People draft up their business plan. They go to some business consultant, they pay X amount of money, they get this foolproof business plan. It's polished, it's binded, it looks immaculate.
Yes.
And then they walk into the bank or they walk into an institution and they don't get the loan to start the business. So what are some of the things that institutions look for when looking to give you money to invest into your business?
Well, the key thing, first place, banks or credit unions, we don't give money to invest into your business because we're not equity partners. We are lenders.
Okay.
So we will lend money and we want a return on that money. We want the money back with interest. So when you're looking for equity investment, in the States, you have a more developed market and there's legislation that supports it in terms of angel investors and so on, who could come and put in money and take a share of your business. In the Trinidad context or the Caribbean context, it's more, you may have to use more of your equity and more of your family's equity. So, as I said, it starts with a good idea. You need to have a good idea. No bank, no credit union, no financial institution is just going to hand over 100% of the financing that you need. And they're not seeing a cent of equity from you, but it's a great idea. Yeah, right. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to show that, hey, I have put some equity into this because this is worthwhile. So 30%, the percentage would vary depending. There's no hard and fast rule to say it must be X percent.
Right.
It depends on what the business is and what the total quantum is. But you must have a serious percentage. And what it does, so the more equity you could put into the business, equity has a cost in terms of those persons will expect a return or a dividend. But in terms of the cash flow cost, operational cost that is fixed, you don't have the interest that you have to pay steadily if you borrow from an institution such as us.
Right.
So it is better for the entrepreneur to raise as much equity percentage as they can. And the best place to get that is from your family, really. But it starts with you, because if you don't have the money to invest in your own enterprise, why should I put any money into it? Because you have not committed with your own dollars into something. So I'm not interested. But once you're willing to put something into what you propose to be your ticket out, well, I'll say yes, this looks like a good plan, this looks like a good cash flow. You buy credibility by your equity, the level of equity that you put into the business. So I think that's critical. So people should not walk into a financial institution expecting 100%.
Right.
Their equity percentage is key, because what it tells the lender is, hey, I'm serious about this business.
Right.
If I lose this business, it's not a side hustle, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I lose a part of me. This is important to me. And if you send that message through your level of equity, then people will be more inclined to lend on that once the cash flows and everything, and once the business makes sense. As I say, it can't be for face masks. It has to be for something that has longevity towards it in terms of our business idea.
Gotcha. So, I'm
Should say
curious. Go ahead.
what I could add to is there is some grant funding that is available depending on the type of business and if it's manufacturing in particular or if it's a new idea. The government has several grant funding schemes that are accessible that you could get, well, as they call it, free money. That's what a grant is. You don't have to
Right.
pay it back. And so especially if it's a new idea now being developed, my advice to would be try to access as much grant funding as you can because that comes with no strings. You just have to follow the guidelines, of course, of the grant. You can't get the grant and do something else with the money. But once you keep to those guidelines, it will lower your cost of capital. So that would be my key advice. And you get it through Export TT, you get it through Caribbean Export, which is a regional body.
That's extremely good advice, and it's broken down so that people can know, what they should try to access, especially when they're starting out.
Yes.
One thing I'm curious about is, what is some of the age brackets, some of the ages that you see of people coming in to access some of the business loans? Because when I know for the millennial generation, I'll speak for the younger generation too. Many of us don't have the capital
Yes.
and money to have a lien for that loan. Like we don't have the lands, we don't have the money to put in to get
Yes.
that loan. So,
Yes.
like what are some of the age brackets that you are seeing coming in more for the business loans? Is it the older generation? Is it the young guys coming out? Like, give us some insights.
It depends on what your life experience is. And what you see in Trinidad and you see internationally, it runs the spectrum. So I think I was sharing that conversation with you. I visited a tech hub in Canada attached to Ryerson University. And you have the retired CEOs who are 65 in the same hub with the young entrepreneurs who are in college studying, who are in the 20s. So, and it runs, or you may have the 40-something-year-old career worker who was laid off from their
Right.
job. So it all depends on what their circumstances are. The common denominator is that they all have an idea which they think is scalable and which they think makes good business sense.
Right.
So it matters not which part of the life cycle you happen to be. You just have to be prepared to work behind your idea and to do what is necessary. It's not gonna fall in your plate. It's not a job to say, well, whether I work hard or not, it'll be successful. No, business doesn't
Right.
work like that.
Right.
You have to put in the sweat. So you could run the gamut. So, for example, when we started the programs with you, we were gearing towards the millennials, and we were surprised they came with their parents.
I think we had more parents.
Yeah. And that taught me a lesson, because they're in a different cycle, but it matters to them.
Right.
Because at the stage where, okay, I'm 60, I'm retired, I had a good life, but I'm not dying. I need to do something with my life.
Right.
And the technology is out there that could help me reach where I want to reach.
Yeah.
So it applies across the board, I would say.
I love it, and I think one of the things that that we had started with today at Eastern, even though as we just said we got a lot of the parents that were coming into the program, I think more millennials need to start learning some of the high income skills or learning a lot more of the businesses that don't require a lot of capital because
Correct.
Again. I know for me, moving to Trinidad, I just moved here, started with family, didn't have money to invest into my business. But then
Yes.
my thing was always too, well, how could I take this idea that I want and start it as cheap as possible? And
Yes.
if I had learned how to build e-commerce websites before I, went and got money and saved up to open up a store, I would
Yes.
have easily went the route of e-commerce platform because with the e-commerce platform, it cost me next to no money to build myself. And then even with products, I didn't have to now stock products because I went the
Yes.
route of drop shipping where when an order comes in through my website, people pay 100% up front. And then I bring the orders or I bring the products in from my suppliers and have it delivered to my customers. But we just don't hear these conversations much happening in Trinidad. And I remember seeing online, you're just seeing young people talking about how hard it is to do business in Trinidad, and how hard the institutions, how hard it is to get loans from institutions to start these business ideas.
I think the problem is how they define business. So I'll give you a personal example. So there's a good friend of mine, no names will be called.
Yeah.
But I was supposed to get involved in terms of a gym, the traditional gym business.
Right.
And then COVID hit. And I told him, frankly, forget that.
Right.
Because that will be with us for 2 years. And you can't be paying rents anywhere, and then you're restricted in terms of your membership, how many people could be in at the same time. Or as we have a case now, our gyms are closed.
Right.
That's too risky. So, but using the same fitness theme, you can be online. You could have an app, you could provide online training for people, and you could have a very viable business that is totally online or outdoors or something like that. But that's the business model that I think makes sense for you today. So part of the challenge that people have to do is to adapt to the circumstances. So while they may wake up on Sunday morning with a brilliant idea,
right,
on Monday that might be an old hat. And they have to be able to bury that brilliant idea that Sunday and pivot to say, okay, today being Monday, what should I go with? Because it's not Sunday anymore. And a lot of people haven't realized that it's 2020. It's not 2019 anymore.
Yes.
And you just have to change with the times and do what you have to do for the circumstances that the hand that you are dealt.
So what do you tell the people who they come to you and you tell them, get over it, your business is no longer viable, and they reply, but Chris, I spent my life savings into this business. How can I just leave it alone? How can I just abandon it? How can you tell me it's no longer good? I spent money. What do you tell them?
I tell them your greatest asset is in front of me, yourself. And once you have that asset and you have your health and you have your brain and you're thinking and you're clicking, you could recover from whatever situation. And there's no point in throwing good money after bad. So once you make an assessment and you realize that the trajectory is such that you will be going down a certain road, who cares about the investment that you made? There's more money to be made elsewhere.
Correct.
And you need to pivot and focus on how you can use that intellect that you have and use that strength and power that you have within you to move in a different direction. So it's a question of self-belief as well.
Correct. I fully agree. Chris, so that wraps up our second segment with you, and we're going to be moving into the Q&A section. So everybody, we still have quite a bit of people tuned in live. So what I need you guys to do, let me know that you guys are here. Please, if you love the conversation going on, drop some fireworks. If there are people that you feel like could hear this message, don't forget to share the content. Every share helps, and it helps somebody else. But most importantly, as we move into the Q&A session, this is the time to drop all of your questions in the comments. All right? So we're going to be taking a quick break. Got to thank the sponsors. Again, Digital Age wouldn't happen without them. Taking that quick break, drop your questions in from now, because when we come back, we're going to be taking questions from social media, and we're also going to be taking questions from the live audience. So any questions you have for our guest of honor, Chris Lewis, drop them in the comment section now. We're going to see you guys right after this break.
Stay connected and entertained with broadband bundles designed for you. With Flow Starter and Advanced plans, you can enjoy faster speeds to stream more of what you love. Get free access to the best shows, series, and movies with HBO Go, and connectivity on the go with free Flow Wi-Fi. Packages start from as low as $295 and no contract required. Visit discoverflow.co to sign up today. Flow, keeping you connected.
Sharing your goals, helping you find your place in the world. Peace and gratitude, holding your hand, leading the way, here for your needs, making sure that you succeed. Eastern's land
right, Chris. How you feeling so far, Chris?
Oh, very good, very good. Enjoying.
Wonderful. The live audience is loving the conversation. I'm loving the comments that I am seeing here tonight. Listen, again, drop your questions in because now is the time for the Q&A session. And we got to get Chris into bed just now. He has another day to put some energy into what they're building over there, all right?
You have to let out more files,
All right, so let us get our Q&A clock on the board. Splendid. We have that up. The questions are coming in. So first and foremost, we're going to grab some questions from social media, and then we're going to go to the live audience for questions. So you guys in the audience, the live audience, drop your questions in now. We're going to get to them, all right? So Chris, the first question of the night brought to us by the good folks over at Buzz Media is, what are some key ways we can validate a business idea before we start? Now, I know we had touched on it, but in the event that we had some late people coming in, let us know. What are some key ways to validate a business idea before we start the business?
I think the first way is from what I learned way back when in UE. I had a very good marketing teacher, and every time you came with a fantastic case study and proposal, he would ask you two cutting words. So what? And if you can't answer the so what question, well then kill your idea and do something else with your
Wow.
time. Check the classified. If you're not adding any value to the economic space or to the or people's lives, or you're not solving a problem that cannot be solved at present. If you can't answer, so what? So yeah, I'm going to do this and it's gonna be great and I spend so much money and yeah, have all this publicity. So what? If you can't answer that, well then forget your idea.
Wow.
So I think that's the fundamental thing. It has to pass the so what test after you do all that you're planning to do. The second thing, it should be something that is attuned to you. You can't be going into a business because your friend Mary or John went into a similar business and made a ton of money off of it. So you figure you could do it too. It has
Surest
to
way
be
to dead.
yeah. It has to be something that kind of close to your heart that that you figure, well, okay, I have a personal affinity to this type of business. I think that helps in terms of the dedication and the drive towards success, as opposed to it simply being a money earner for you. Because there are
Right.
other ways, simpler ways you can earn money. Um, as I put it in what you learn in business school, it has to be higher than the risk-free rate. There's something
Right.
called the risk-free rate, which is like a government bond. And let's, for example, say that is 4%
Right.
interest. The higher the risk, the higher the expected return. That's another fundamental of business. Lower the risk, the lower the expected return. So if I could have zero risk, invest in government bonds and earn, I'm calling a figure because I don't know the exact rate as of today,
Right.
and can earn 4%, why should I invest money in a business, take on risk because it may not be successful and I have operating costs and all sorts of things, and earn less than the government risk-free rate? So that's the second test I would apply. So if your rate of return is less than the risk-free rate, forget it.
Right.
Because by doing absolutely nothing and walking into a bank or broker and buying government bonds, I could make more money than investing in your business.
Makes
Uh,
sense. Makes
so
complete
those
sense.
so those are some of the fundamentals I would say. And then of course it must be a good idea. It must add value to people's lives. That will answer this so what question. It must give the adequate return. You must have an affinity to the business to say, well, hey, it means something to me as opposed to just a quick buck.
I love it. The second question for tonight is, Chris, this is brought to us by the good folks over at Flow. This question is specific to you. If
Okay.
you had to start over, would you go the route of being a CEO again?
I wouldn't go the route of doing several things again. Because when I started off and you wanted knowledge, you went on like encyclopedia
Right.
and you looked up the latest edition of the encyclopedia. And I'll share a funny story. I won't call the company name because I know they're online.
Right.
But I was offered a position way back when of a logistics manager, and I had no idea what that job was.
right.
I knew logistics, the term, but I didn't know what a logistics manager did.
Right.
And I had to go in an encyclopedia to look up what they did. And I said, okay, I could do that. It's not physics and it's not engineering because I
Right.
have zero skills when it comes to those sciences. So I said, okay, and I did it and I did a fairly good job at it.
Right.
So I probably would take a different path in the age of the internet because there's so much knowledge you can acquire. I probably wouldn't, because I've had a typically corporate career
Yeah.
in terms of went to Rotary, went to St. Mary's, went to UE, went to Kellogg Business School, come back,
Yeah.
careers, job after job after job, but typical. But that was the norm in the day.
Right.
And that was what was expected and nothing was unusual. So actually, when I look back at my career, when I changed jobs, you get comments like, you're a rolling stone. Because because people expect you to be in one job for 20 years. That was the kind of culture. So I was like an anomaly way back then because I would last 3 years somewhere and move on. And
Right.
like, I'm bored, you know. You
Yeah.
need to do something different with your life. You have to keep me engaged. So, so I would probably do a whole lot very different given the internet. And that's the big change factor. Given the capacity to earn income on your own as an entrepreneur, as a business person, it simply did not have that when I went to school, high school, and so. And it's available now. So, what I'll urge all the younger people in the audience and the older folks as well, make use of the opportunities that are available now and in the present, and forget your learned history because it's just baggage in the end. You can't carry it with you into the future. And people need to understand that. So while what you may have learned may get you to where you are today, it's not going to carry you into 2021
Correct. Or next month.
or next month. People need to understand that every day is a new learning experience and you could learn from anybody. They don't have to be the CEO for you
Right.
to learn from them. They could be the security officer who tells you a pearl of wisdom that you didn't think of before.
Right.
And that's the kind of mindset that we really need to have to grow this society today in
I love it.
2021.
I
Yeah.
love it. All right, so Chris, we're going to be going to the live audience, so we're going to keep these questions in because we have quite a few. If you haven't dropped your question in, feel free to drop your question in the comments now. We are now coming to the live audience. So, the first question comes in from a Nikita Lewin. Nikita asks, this is a good question. Where should I put most of my energy, my 9 to 5 that is helping me to invest in my side business or my business that I want to grow and stop working one day?
Well, that's a hard one. Because at the stage that, and what's the name? And Kita?
Nikita.
Nikita, at the stage Nikita is in, is a question of balance and
Right.
determining where is the right balance, where's the 60% and where's the 40%.
Right.
So your day job is what is paying your rent or your mortgage or buying your food and so on. So you have to give people what's due. What it means as an entrepreneur is after those 8 hours of what's due, you have to invest the next 4 hours or 5 hours into your personal business for it to grow to where you want it to be. You can't just come home and spend an hour on it and turn on watch TV.
Yes.
You have to alter your life. So to use a simple example, if you're working 8 to 4 doing what you have to do, give them their full time because you're being paid for that.
Yes.
But when you reach home, you now have 5 to 10 trying to develop that personal business to become the entity that you would like it to be, or your sole source of income. And then you go to bed and you wake up at 6 to go back to to the 8 to 4 job.
That
And that's
is
reality.
that is the reality. Before we move on, I'll just give a quick example from Nikita of what I did. So
Yeah.
last year, I had a deal with a company, pretty substantial deal, and that deal fell through because the company went a different direction altogether with their management. On the
Yeah.
same day that I learned about my project being shelved, I got a phone call from a company offering me a management job, and the salary was really good. So I took it because I'm like, you know what? Let me do this for at least a year so I could stack up money to do exactly what Chris just outlined. Now here's the thing: from when I started, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I worked on my businesses till 7 in the morning. Then I got ready, went to work 9 to 5, came back home and I relaxed, right? Because I did all my
Yes.
work before. My mindset was always, let me go make money for myself before I
Yes.
do it for somebody else, right?
Correct.
Now, I started to do my workshops at that point in time as well. Chris, that was the stuff that you were seeing. So I was doing my workshops every single month, teaching people different online business stuff, whatever. And it wasn't until about November last year when Chris reached out to me and said, "Hey, listen, this there's some synergy. Let's talk. Let's see what we can do." And by December, when we created our plan that COVID just destroyed,
Yes.
there was enough in my arrangement with Eastern and my other business to quit the day job.
Yes.
So if I never put in the time to build
Correct.
my brand, do my workshops,
Yes.
and didn't have that proof of concept, Eastern would have Chris would have just passed me straight. Chris
Yes.
would even have looked my way.
Yes.
So what he is saying, I could attest to that. It's work, but listen, if you want to quit, you got to put in the
Correct.
work. So our next question comes in from Janelle Jack, and listen, Tobago is not happy with you, Chris. I know
Okay.
Tobago is not happy with you. Tobago, Janelle Jack from Tobago wants to know, when will there be workshops for entrepreneurs in Tobago like there was in Trinidad? When, Chris? When is Tobago getting some love?
Well, the short answer is COVID, because there's none in Trinidad either. Because we can't assemble. Now we're down to 5 persons. So that's why we pivoted to the online sessions, which we ran some webinars online. And
Yeah.
now I'm here with you at 8 o'clock, but at 5 o'clock we had a smaller session, more intimate with the members only. Maybe about 6 members took part, but it was very interesting. We were just talking about what's in at Eastern and what the members would like to see. So we're moving in an online direction right now, but I would particularly like to be in touch with Ms. Jack to develop programs specific for the Tobago environment. Because, the traditional thing has been you do a program and you come across in Tobago and you do the same program. But I don't think that's appropriate, I'll be honest. I think what we need to see a lot more of is products for Tobago, specifically. And actually, that's one of the mandates I gave the management of our Tobago branch at Eastern. I want to see lending products, savings products for Tobago, not products that we launching in Trinidad and trying to sell in Tobago. No, I want to see Tobago-based products, because it's a different market, it's a different culture, it's a different people, and I think we need to recognize that in our marketing, in our product development, and that's the direction we go in. So you can let us show Ms. Jack, I'll be calling her.
Yeah, listen, and Janelle is a great person because she does a lot of stuff. I'll connect you guys offline, but that'll be a
Yes,
very good
sure.
discussion. So Janelle, please contact me after. You know how to reach me. So next question comes in from Jolene, and Jolene wants to know, Chris, you touched briefly on the financial tools that Eastern provides. Can you elaborate? Now I know that is a very big thing to elaborate on.
Yes.
I think the better answer would be, where could she find out more information offline on the financial tools?
Well, the simplest way is our website, ecunewexperience.com. And there's a button on the first page, is one of the things I implemented when I started at Eastern, called the experience button. And she could just go onto that button and say what she's looking for, whether it's business financing or what sort of financing she needs,
Right.
and just put it there. When she sends that request in, it comes to me, it comes to the head of the branch network, it comes to the marketing manager, it comes to the head of credit admin. So the four senior executive managers, it comes to the deputy CEO. We all get that correspondence. So, the action starts at a high level. So it's not lost in an info at queue. So it comes to the very head and we follow up. So that's a quick and dirty way to get started. Alternatively, I can't remember the call center number, but you can call our call center and relay your information. But the quickest way I would recommend is just go to the website and type in what you're looking for in the experience button. You'll leave your cell phone number and we'll follow up from that on that way.
Perfect. All right. So, Chris, we're going to try to fly through to get as many questions in before we wrap up. All right.
Yes.
All right. So, next question. This one's pretty short. From Shane Wallace. Shane is asking, when will you guys be upgrading your Sprint card to chip and pin technology? Chris, I want to know the answer to that too.
So do I. So I had a conversation today actually with our IT team lead. So all I could assure is we're working on that. We have a deadline that we have to meet. In terms of the central bank guidelines, the deadline I believe is 2021 December. We certainly want to do it way before then.
Yeah.
So we're looking at our options right now, and we're having discussions. Well, not this hour, but after today, we've had discussions in that regard. So that's on our front burner. So
Perfect.
hopefully, within 6 months, we will see some progress.
Perfect. I love it. So, Ciel Environmental. Hi, Shan. How you doing? Shan is asking, as an entrepreneur in the waste management sector, you mentioned how grants can help. I saw the ECU offers a green loan, but it does not cover waste equipment. Has Eastern Credit Union thought to broaden its scope?
Okay, well, to partially answer that question, one of the things I did in preparation with the recently held elections, I looked at both parties' manifestos. Well, of course, we know which party won the general election. And in the PNM manifesto, there is reference to grants funding for green projects, and certain targets were set for use of alternative energy by 2030 and so on. So on the government side, I know they are looking in that direction, giving grants, giving tax incentives for going green and for using alternative sources of energy. And what we hope as Eastern to partner with those initiatives of the government to make it more financially viable for persons. We already work with people who are in that business, and we have a couple of projects in the pipeline. So my advice would be give us a call. Again, the quickest, easy, fast and dirty way is through the experience page, and we will make the connection there that way. But that is a focus for us because, we have the whole campaign about do right by the environment. So it's an area that is of importance to us.
Perfect. Next question comes in from Marlon. This is a very good question. Marlon's asking, the creative industry such as events management services have taken a hit. Yes, we
Yes.
can't party no more, Chris. From
Yes.
your perspective, what do you suggest would be the best thing for these people to do in these times?
Okay. Well, there's a thing called virtual events, which I know you hosted, that training session. So in terms of staying within your field, that is one thing you can do a pivot. It's not the same as filling a stadium with 30,000 people, but I see Jamaica had some very successful virtual events
Yes.
with millions of people all over the world tuning in. I forgot the name of the reggae fest that they had, or the wars between Beanie Man and Vibes Cartel and these kind of things. So you can pivot in that kind of way. But what I also like to suggest now is maybe a good time to do some research, some of that downtime, because to share a personal experience when I had left a previous job and I was home for about 7 months.
Yeah.
And that was the best 7 months of my life in terms of being able to think, being able
Right.
to develop new projects. And if you're working in a creative space, it gives you that time for your creativity to really come to the fore and to say, well, okay, what next for me? Where next should I pivot? Where should I go? What's the trends? Do my research. What is happening around the world? So my two-sided answer is the virtual events type of approach, and the second answer would be in terms of the research. It's giving you some quiet time, and don't be vexed with the quiet time, because when things get hectic and busy, you lose that quiet time and you lose that research capability that you have right now. So embrace it and see how best you can take advantage of it.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. Marlon, if there's one thing, when COVID hit and I had speaking engagements, I had workshop deals with companies, I had a lot of things lined up and that all went out the window when COVID hit. But the one thing COVID gave me, as Chris said, was quiet time. Digital age was born in that quiet time. Doing all of this took me 2 months to learn because it's a lot. But I would have never have been able to do it if life didn't slow down and I got
Correct.
to just think. So next question comes in from a Cheyenne. Cheyenne asks, my question is, for someone who has a business that's been set up, money invested, registered, proof of previous stock, receipts, etc., but due to the crisis, the business has become stagnant. The business owner hasn't had any money to get the business back up and running. What assistance can be given to them to get this business back up and off the ground? Oh, okay. That's very relevant.
Well, that's of course sort of it depends question. It depends on whether the business is allowed to operate in the COVID environment. I don't know what type of business it is. If there may be Ministry of Health restrictions on its operation. If you're a bar, for example, if you're a gym, we have the 28-day closure period. It may be extended. So it may be a time to pivot and to look to see how else could I do this business successfully? Because the one thing, it's a ratio, it's a math problem. Revenue minus expenses gives you surplus. If your revenue is cut by 50% and your expenses stay the same, surplus turns into a negative. You can sustain that for 1 month or 2 months. You can't sustain it for 6 months. So if you make a projection to say that situation will continue, let's say for 6 months, then you have to pivot to see what else I can do and try to realize value from the stock that you have. If you have invested in stock, you can't afford to just keep paying rent, for example, for something that that you're not in the end. The end is not in sight. It may be hard choices to be made, but sometimes it's better for the long term to make the hard choices now than let somebody else make the hard choice for you. You don't want to come out there and see locks on the door put there by the landlord, because then you're in a worse situation. So it may be a time to really make the hard choices. So do a projection to see, well, okay, how long will this situation last for? Could I survive cash flow wise? If not, what else can I do? How can I realize cash? What else can I, like, for example, I don't know if you noticed it, but a lot of well-established business places in Trinidad, when the lockdown occurred, all of a sudden everybody was selling fruits and vegetables. In front of record store in Maraval, I saw a vegetable stand. I'm like, what's going on here? And I saw it somewhere else again. They just pivoted.
And the campaign is build your immune system.
yeah. They have to make money somehow. So fruits and vegetables it is, because that was allowed by the government in terms of selling. So I'm not saying to sell fruits and vegetables. I'm saying to look at the options that are available and make some serious hard-nosed decisions.
Yeah. One thing I'll add to that is every business that you do, you can teach aspects of the business. And
Yeah.
with all of the tools and platforms available to us right now, you can take what you were doing. So if you were a stylist, I can't remember what her business is, but I remember seeing it. But if you are a stylist, if you are a hairdresser, if you are a nail tech, these are things that you can, as much as you might have had a physical space and you were providing that service, you can
Yes.
teach those services online and scale. Because
Correct.
now you're not limited to just your block radius and people coming
Yes.
into you, right?
Yes.
You can take that, turn it into digital products. For me,
Yes.
again, was doing workshops. Can't meet. So rather than say, okay, you know, workshops are just not going to happen, I figured out how to teach a lot of those things and do it online and turn that into a business and make
I'll
that
give you
pivot.
another example. I was talking to a young gentleman who makes punches, and he was talking about, he like to do little videos, I think, to show people, see how could he monetize that to show people how to make punch, because the average Trinidadian might want to learn how to make a banana punch, for example. And
Right.
I watched him and I said, that's not your market.
Right.
Your market is not the average Trinidadian. Your market is the diaspora in New York who heard about banana punch. Oh, that's a wonderful idea. How do I make that?
Yes.
And they want to now go, if they could go online and learn how to make, oh, I'm in the Caribbean, I'm in Trinidad. That's
Yes. Yes.
As I tell them, that's your market. You're looking at the wrong market. Your market is not Trinidad and Tobago. Your market is the diaspora, and there's millions in the diaspora. So that's the way we sometimes have to think to pivot. Okay, who is this for? So what? I don't. You can't answer the so what question looking at Trinidad, because so what? Hey, banana punch. I could make that myself.
Correct. You could go in the backyard, pick two banana, and there you go. Your punch is there. You're absolutely right.
But for the foreigner in a strange environment, walking in Whole Foods to buy his bananas, it's a big deal that I could go on this app and download and maybe pay whatever and learn how to make this thing and feel like I'm in the Caribbean.
Yes, and to your point, growing up in so most people, if this is the first time you're tuning in, I was born in Trinidad, left when I was 2 weeks old, and I lived in Canada for 29 years. So my life is back in Toronto. But
Yeah.
one of the most coveted, listen, every time we came to Trinidad and my mom brought me on vacation, one of the most coveted things we always came and looked for was we made sure to get a up-to-date Naparima's cookbook.
Yes.
We made sure because, again, in Canada, life is a lot busier. People are hardly ever home. We got to cook
Yeah.
for ourselves. And if I wanted to make a little, macaroni pie and stewed chicken,
Correct.
I was going to get it on
I have
Sunday.
one and I came to say.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
start thinking along those lines, So, Chris, we're going to take 2 more questions and then we're going to wrap up, all right?
Okay.
So, next question is coming in from Rayard Singh. And Rayard is asking, for the Gen Xers, what advice do you have for retooling to enter and succeed in the digital age and get a digital mindset?
It depends on what your interest is. Follow your interest. Do your research to see what's trending, where the opportunities are. Look at people. You get a lot of ideas from just observing people and seeing how people live, how they travel, how they eat, what kind of challenges they get going about their day-to-day life, and saying, hey, you know what? I could make this easier.
Right.
I could simplify your life. Once you could get that aha moment, you could probably have a business idea generating from that. So a lot of my ideas. So for example, I think we having the conversation. I have about 10 domain names saved up. A couple of them have turned into websites.
Right.
But it's from looking to see what's the need in the society that needs to be filled, and then the domain comes up from that because it will fill a need.
Right.
So it's the same principle. You need to fill a need. You can't just be in business because, okay, it sounds good.
Right.
It has to be that, hey, you answer the so what question. You're filling a need that doesn't exist.
Very true. Very, very true. Chris, the last question for tonight. comes in from Dominic Chapman. And Dominic is asking, when should you start outsourcing tasks in order to scale?
If you could start from the beginning, start from the beginning. Because you will have certain skills. You know, sometimes we have a business mentality. Oh, I could do everything. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm master of my own business. But if somebody will earn 10 cents to do something you're not particularly good at, give them the 10 cents. Because you could spend the time making the 90 cents on something that you're good at, and you'll make more of that 90 cents. So that kind of mindset. So it could happen from the very beginning. It just has to be low cost enough that it makes financial sense. But that is what allows you to scale. Because the more time you have to spend yourself at each part of the value chain, the less you can produce at the end of the value chain. But if you could distribute those parts of the production to as many people as you can and still be cost effective, but you hold for yourself that part that you could add the greatest value, then it makes sense. I don't know if I stuck in English.
No, listen, that makes complete sense. And you know what? One of my students is actually tuned in, and we had this exact scenario. One of the biggest challenges that people, when it comes to outsourcing, is people are constantly thinking about outsourcing, but within their market. So
Yes.
if we're in Trinidad, right?
Yes.
People are thinking, okay, I don't want to do emailing. I need an assistant. Let me outsource to a virtual assistant, in Trinidad. And then the person tells you, well, I want 6,000 a month, and you're like, well, I can't afford that.
Yes.
They're not looking at outsourcing to Europe, to Asia, where
Yes.
we can now benefit from the currency difference.
Correct.
So if you want to start to outsource from the beginning and take advantage of what Chris is talking about, you're in the States, Dom. I know you're in the States. Don't look at the US to outsource.
Yes.
Start looking at the Philippines. Kevin Valley, host of Caribbean Podcast, Caribbean Power Lunch. He doesn't edit his own stuff anymore because he's like, you know what? Editing my podcast takes time. I have a guy
Yes.
out in the Philippines who edits all of my stuff. And
Yes.
the guy in the Philippines makes good money, but it's extremely affordable for Kevin to outsource
Yes.
that, right?
Correct.
So start looking at platforms like freelancer.com, Upwork, Fiverr. There are a bunch of places that you could look at to outsource
Yes.
tasks. And then
Yes.
another thing that I like to do is, depending on the task, I might go on Instagram, search up the hashtag, look at everybody, because remember, Instagram is people's portfolios. So
Yeah.
if I'm looking for a graphic designer, I'd go on Instagram, type in the hashtag graphic design, and then look at all of the posts that come up. And then I'm now seeing everybody's designs, and then I reach out to them. Half the time, when I was looking to get a logo done, people in Trinidad wanted to charge me 300, 400 US to do it. And by the time I reached out to somebody who was in India, who was in Russia, who was in China, I got my logos done for less than 100 US.
Yes.
So it's really just about learning, what
Yes.
are the different platforms available and
Correct.
what markets you can outsource to, and then you could really take advantage of the advice Chris just gave us.
Makes sense.
Chris, I want to thank you very, very much for tuning in. I mean, for coming on, but I'm not saying tuning in, for coming on and dropping the gems that you dropped tonight. Chris, how are you feeling?
Very good, very good. I enjoyed the experience. Was a little apprehensive at the beginning, but it turned out quite nicely.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's always a vibe, man. It's always a vibe.
Yeah.
And we always have very good conversation. So before we close, do you have any closing words for the digital age audience tonight?
Well, first, thank you again for having me on the show and to assure everyone that Eastern Credit Union is ready to do business with you to help your business grow. And it's not simply about providing funding, but trying to develop that ecosystem so your chances of success are much greater with Eastern.
Love it. Love it. Chris, thank you again for joining us tonight and giving us tons of wisdom. Listen, guys, if you are in the audience and you have stuck with us right to the end, let me know that you guys are here. Drop your comments. Let us know how you enjoyed tonight's episode. We always go through the comments that you guys leave. Let us know that what you guys felt about tonight's episode. Drop some hearts, drop some likes, drop your comments. We're going to be checking all of those things out. So next week, Thursday, 8 p.m., we are actually going to be talking to a award-winning journalist and personality and content creator. Her name is Ricolia Phillips, and she is going to be in a really, really great discussion with me talking about tourism and technology. We're going to be talking about, a wide variety of things that, different countries could be doing, a lot of the hotels, all of the stakeholders within the tourism industry, what they could be doing from a digital perspective. So we're going to be talking digital marketing, we're going to be talking content creating, and we're going to be mixing it into the scope of tourism. So next week is going to be really, really fun. She's one of my favorite content creators, and she's won a very prestigious award last year for her work on Uber Soca Cruise. So next week is going to be all about tourism, technology, digital marketing, all right? So again, if you guys enjoyed tonight's episode, let us know in the comments below. Drop the fireworks, leave your comments. Listen, next week is going to be fire. I cannot wait to tune in with you guys. And I hope to see all of you at next week's episode. All right? So until that time, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week on The Digital Age. Okay, bye.